Hi, Anju.
Yes,
Anjali.
Rinsky.
Hi. Quick
Hi.
question. If there are questions in the Q&A or in the chat during my talk, and you think if you guys can monitor that, if there's something that is really relevant, like where you think, this should probably be covered in the session rather than at the end, I'm very comfortable with that. Okay. So if there's any particular questions people have and you think I should answer it during the session, yeah, we don't have to wait till the end. Okay. It's up to you.
Hello, Anjali. I hope you are
Yes.
able to get it.
Yeah. So basically, I'll be taking the questions in the middle of the session. Am I right?
If there's something relevant, if you think,
Okay.
hey, this needs to be answered now because it's really important
Okay.
during the session that other people know the answers to, then
Mm-hmm.
very comfortable with that, no problem.
Okay, great. If I get any questions in the chat box during the session, I'll let you know. Yes.
Yeah.
Is it okay?
And if you think
Yes.
it's better to wait at the end till the end for that one, then that's fine as well. It's up to you.
Oh, okay. Yes, I'll do that.
Just give me 30 seconds, just got to grab something. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Welcome, everyone. So please stay with us. We'll start the session soon. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the GSDC Global ISO 27001 webinar 2024. My name is Anjali, and I am your host for today. Joining me is my colleague, Ms. Setilu, as a co-host. If you need any assistance during this session, please do reach out to her. And yeah, so just give me a second. Yeah, so we'll be having ISO 27001 webinar session with these two amazing speakers. So today's speaker is Miss Rinsky Gillings, Business as Usual Managing Director. She'll be speaking on the topic getting mind support for security from across your organization. How can the ISO 27001 standard assist? So she'll be speaking on this topic today. And for tomorrow, Mr. Christophe Mezzola, DSCBR Cybersecurity Managing Director. He will be speaking on the topic of psychology of security compliance, exploring how ISO 27001 influences behavior and attitude towards security in organization. So he'll be speaking tomorrow. So everyone, please stay connected with us on our socials. So let me introduce you to our hosting organization, GSDC. We are a vendor neutral, vendor agnostic, globally recognized certification body. We have accredited by globally renowned bodies, that is NC and ABICB. We have 100 plus certification portfolio. We have successfully certified 90,000 plus professionals worldwide. We have GSDC has 500 plus advisory board of members who are also our SMEs. They work closely with our team to help to design our deliverables. We are associated with 30 plus universities globally. So if you want more information, please check our GSDC website. The link is mentioned in the chat box. Yes, GSDC authorized training partners. We have over 100 plus training partners associated with us globally. We have partners in Asia, Africa, and Europe, Canada, and many more countries. Thank you to all of those who are joining the session through our partner channels. If you want to connect with our training partners, please find the partners link in the chat box shared. A big shout out to our proud patrons for sharing this knowledgeable events to their network. And thank you for always supporting us. And thank you. Thank you very much, WordPress Hub, our official media partner, for covering all our social media events. And as I mentioned before, we have 100 plus certification portfolios such as generative AI, blockchain, ISO, DevOps, and many more certifications. For this event, we are specifically focusing on ISO 27001 certifications in this session. So you can check a full list of certification on our website. The link is shared in the chat box. Lifelong membership, any candidate certified with the GSTC will get a lifelong membership with us, complimentary upgrade to all the certification, to all the GSTC certificates, also free access to the global summits, workshops, and webinars, and many more such events. So here's a quick announcement regarding, before we end this session, we have a 15 minutes of gamification session. It will be held after the Q&A session. So please stay connected with us till the end, everyone. The top winner will win a GSDC exam voucher worth $400. And top 3 winners will be posted on the GSDC Wall of Fame. Yes, sir. So let me introduce you to our keynote speaker, Ms. Rinsky Grillings, Business as Usual Managing Director. A big welcome, Rinsky, from GSDC behalf. Rinsky is a multi-award winning, internationally known consultant, speaker, and certified risk management, business continuity management, and information security trainer. She was awarded as Risk Consultant of the Year by RMIA 2017 and an Outstanding Security Consultant finalist in the OSPA's 2019. Rinsky draws on more than 20 years of experience gained during the roles across Australia, Asia, Africa, South America, and Europe. Thank you very much, Rinsky. Before we, if you want to learn more about our speaker, then LinkedIn profile is mentioned in the chat box. And before we go further with our session, we'll be having a quick Q&A post the speaker session. So feel free to put your questions during the session in this chat box, and we'll be taking all your questions in this. Yes, Rinsky, you can take over the virtual mic ahead.
That's great. Thank you so much, Anjali. I really enjoyed talking about these topics like ISO and anything to do with getting support and buy-in from people that you work with, whether it's the top or the general workforce. So I hope you're going to enjoy this session. We already had the pleasure of hearing a mouthful about my background earlier, so I won't go into too much detail. You can see a little bit more background on myself in LinkedIn, for example, after we finish this session. I like to keep in touch with all of you. So if you have any questions afterwards, that's great. Or we can also do that on the GSDC website or on the LinkedIn page where we can share some thoughts. So if you do have questions during this webinar, please put them in the chat. I will try to monitor a little bit myself, but also the team of GSDC will also do that for me. And at the end, we'll cover in the Q&A, we'll cover your questions as much as we can. If there's anything really urgent, we will try to cover it during the session, but we'll see what we can come up with in terms of managing time today. All right, so let's get started. Hopefully, all of you are at least a little bit familiar with the ISO 27001 standard, or at least you're at least interested in it. That would also help. So I will go through some of the basic ingredients to the standard, but also then how it can help you getting support or buy-in. Buy-in is really similar to support, for that for the information security management system that you may be implementing there. All right, so it was already said quite a lot of things about my background. I do certification audits and also training and certification training under PCB. That's a different system, but it's a very cooperative space. I find, people who work in ISO, especially in that world, there's a lot of certification happening, a lot of collaboration between different providers, because it's a huge market at the moment, and it's a huge area of attention for most businesses to get at least some sort of evidence around what they're doing, in the sense of training their staff, certifying their organization, and not just coming up with some wonderful plan on a serviette on a piece of paper, but actually, doing it according to some good global principles. So you can see here some of the standards that I typically work with: the 22301 for business continuity, the ISO 27001 for information security, and then a number of other ones, which is the 27032, the cyber risk security standard, and 22361, that's a bit of a new one since 2022. It's the crisis management standard. And of course, ISO 31000, the risk management framework, the standard that actually is as a foundation under a lot of these other standards as well. So I do really think that the risk-based approach, according to ISO 31000, is really important for doing any of these other initiatives, especially information security, because it's pretty much impossible to cover every single risk with the right investment in all the controls, in the different clauses that you need to cover for that standard. And to do a perfect job is pretty much impossible in the world of information security. By the time you think you've covered all your risks, there's a new risk around the corner that you don't even have in your risk register. Like, for example, ransomware. We'd like to think that we have at least all our risks rated in terms of likelihood and impact, even the black swan risks, the low likelihood but huge impact. And then we get something like ransomware coming around the corner, and that's the sort of thing where pretty much 90% or more of the organizations that you work with, or that I've worked with in my world as a consultant, they actually didn't have that risk in their risk register at all before it happened first. So I'm talking about the big, Pedia, WannaCry, those sorts of times. Let's say 8 or 10 years ago, it was really quite rare to see organizations identifying ransomware as a risk. So what I'm trying to say is the frameworks like the ISO 31000 helps with at least prioritizing some of your initiatives, some of your controls, some of your improvement processes, your project plan, I should say, around improving these capabilities. And I think it's an illusion to think that you're going to be ever perfect at any of these frameworks. So the changing nature of these frameworks is also what makes it interesting. If you're just stepping into the world of ISO 27001 or any of these other frameworks, it's actually really exciting, because it's always going to be moving a little bit. I don't like to say moving targets, but it's a moving field. And what's also really interesting is people think, I'm good at IT, I'm interested in IT, I will just, do ISO 27001 because it will give me those technical capabilities. Well, we all know that, 82%, as I read the other day, of all the cyber attacks relied or depended on a person clicking something. So that tells you that the human factor in all of this is really, really, really important. In fact, potentially more important to really tackle than just your technical controls. So yeah, that makes that world really, really interesting. It's a people process. It's really about getting your workforce educated on, for example, during phishing simulations, but also generally about the importance of good information security management, and for them to look out for the risks. I often speak to people where they say, well, the board, the executive, they have put in all these policies and they've signed it off, and now we're ready, and our technical team is ready too. So we've got all the penetration testing and technical controls and the logs, and then my next question is, well, what do you really know about what happens on the work floor and where the risk really originates from? And that is your general workforce, right? So at least if you could start with something like, if you see something, say something, as a philosophy in your business for your staff to actually really be tuned into any of these risks, that's a good start at least. And to keep all those things also really simple, because most people in the field of information security management or risk management, they think that their world is so interesting and exciting. But yeah, you have to keep it super simple for other people, whether it's the board or the general operational workforce, for them to find it exciting and easy to digest as well. So that's a little bit of an intro. You can see some background on myself. I talk a lot about risk, and maybe I was born with the risk management genetics, because my originating country where I was born is the Netherlands, and we are 70 to 80% underwater level. So when you grow up in the Netherlands, you hear about the floods and those people who died in the 1950s because the waters kept rising. Of course, we're now dealing with similar things due to different causes, but the impacts are similar. So yeah, that's a little bit of background on myself. Now, the last bullet point you can see there, I developed a method to workshop and agree on risk appetite with boards and executive and ELTs, executive leadership teams. And the reason why that's so important is if the top, and I'm not talking just the tone at the tone at the top is important, right? To get at least the right importance to the whole process or multiple processes. But I'm also really focusing these days on articulating the actual quantified kind of version, metrics around risk appetite, not just a vague utopian statement that the board puts out there and that the general workforce in the organization doesn't understand, or it might not feel any relevance to their job on a day-to-day basis. So I actually have worked a lot with recently with executives and leadership teams to actually articulate this in a more tangible way, the whole risk appetite statements. So that's a bit of an intro. Now, another bit of introduction is information security and cybersecurity are not the same, and cybersecurity is often confused with anything to do with if there's any risk to your systems and if data could be compromised. And well, to a certain degree, that's true, but the actual definition is a little bit different. So basically, cybersecurity is the ability to defend or protect the use of cyberspace from cyber attacks. And what are cyber attacks? They're the things that actually hang off the internet. So anything that's connected to your networks. Now, that's important because information security is a much broader context. And that concept of information security is also includes cybersecurity, but it also has things like how people are dealing with printed information, where do they go around with movable media, for example, USB sticks, thumb drives. It could be your hiring and firing policies in your business. All of that links to it. Disaster recovery, all of those concepts, and especially the CIA triangle, confidentiality, integrity, and availability triangle. And that's what the ISO 27001 talks a lot about, those three concepts. Now, when we're talking about cybersecurity, we're typically dealing with anything to do with confidentiality, where data is stolen or it's compromised and then put out there in the public domain where people can see that sensitive data. So that's a confidentiality issue. It can also be an integrity issue if your data is stolen by hackers and then it's manipulated. For example, they've taken over your website and they have now put incorrect information that actually puts you in a bad light. And they've edited your corporate website, for example. That could be an example of an integrity issue. But it can also be that they've hacked into your finance system, stole some data which is confidentiality related, and also have then manipulated your records so it's now completely incorrect and you're in a big strife. And that becomes then an operational issue, and you might need a business continuity plan to deal with that. Availability is more about disaster recovery processes and having those in place. So the unavailability of data could be due to a cyber attack or other forms. That means that, hey, now actually our data cannot be accessed by the right people. And that could mean, for example, ransomware, which is affecting, in some examples, ransomware could affect your ability to get access to your data, or it could actually compromise your network connectivity. And that means your availability of your systems is now actually affected. So that's the three concepts that we often deal with in information security management systems. So hopefully you guys all understand that, because often when we talk about it with colleagues and just generally what we see in the media, it tends to cover mostly, it's talking, if there's a data breach, for example, it talks mostly about confidentiality. But integrity and availability are also very important concepts, and they're included in the framework of ISO 27001. So information security also deals with digital, analog, non-cybersecurity risks, like it says there, handling employee vetting processes, data governance, non-networked or standalone systems. They still exist, and yeah, it's important to see that it's not all cyber security related. We need processes for other forms of security when it comes to handling information. So what you see here is a picture where you see the prevent and prepare as well as the respond and recover stages. Prevent and prepare pretty much being the beforehand, before an incident, and then responding and recovery, meaning when it's happening. So when you talk about cyber incident response planning, or SIRP, some of you may have that, or cyber security incident response planning, the CSIRP, your cyber incident response plan. That's when we're talking about the response and recovery, and specifically for cybersecurity events, because it's cyber incident response plan, right? Then if we go a little bit broader, that means, for example, that we're dealing with cybersecurity management. And that includes, in the ISO 27032 standard, for example, it includes your prevent and prepare phase. So it actually covers prevention, preparation, response, and recovery in that framework. Then some examples of, well, a particular example that you're probably quite familiar with if you work in information security, the NIST 861 or other frameworks that deal with computer security incident handling. That's when there's an incident and we have to deal with it. And it could be any incident. It doesn't have to be cyber. It can also be broader. If that's the case, that framework then covers the response and recovery phase, as you can see in this picture. And then lastly, the whole framework of ISO 27001, for example, there's more of them, but like, let's say the ISO 27001, it covers prevention, preparedness, response, recovery, and it does that for not just cyber events, but also for the broader scheme of information security. So it includes all of those aspects, including all the controls that it has, and also some methods, other clauses that deal with your general overall maintenance of the process. So that's hopefully giving you some guidance on how it all hangs together. Now, another thing to mention here before we get into more the ISO 27001 scope of what's included there, and how it can help you get traction with people around you, is cyber attacks happen to the best. And we always think, oh, we can prevent everything, especially security people generally have the goal, the aim, the objective. I was going to say the illusion, but let's keep it nice here. But the objective to reduce any likelihood, basically. If there's also even the slightest chance something would happen, they would like to mitigate that. And the risk-based approach actually says what would be the impact. And if the impact is moderate to low, you might choose not to treat that cybersecurity risk or that information security risk. And that's where security people are sometimes struggling a lot, because they want to really prevent. And with cybersecurity and information security generally, it's become pretty much impossible to set yourself that goal. We often talk about it's a matter of when it happens, not if it happens, when it comes to information security threats. So these are some examples of organizations that we put all our faith in, right? So we pay hefty fees for external vendors of cybersecurity tools and software and monitoring systems. For example, FireEye, they actually are the bee's knees, you know, the real high-end kind of really specialized firms that do this for other organizations that protect systems and you know, do that for a whole range of different organizations and industries globally. And yeah, they could also be subject to being hacked. And that's, of course, when we get really nervous, thinking, well, if they can't protect themselves, how can they protect us? And who can? Because there's not that many options out there. And so another couple of examples here. Cybersecurity executives weighing in on vaccine data hacks. So this is where the health sector gets affected by hacking, by breaches, and that's where we all get really nervous, including boards, including all the staff in your organization, because this becomes a human impact of a hack and not just some financial details. That's also human, but when it becomes human health and well-being, we get really, really nervous, of course. All right, here you can see some government data being up for sale. It's a pretty common thing that we're reading almost on a daily basis now. We see that governments are also really investing in this. But if corporates are really investing in this and have budgets available, typically government has to be making even more choices on where they're going to put the fairly limited budget sometimes that they have for this. And so they're literally typically, a little bit behind the facts as well. And even corporates are behind the facts, even the big corporates, because what we find is the hackers, the cyber criminals, the information security breach experts, the hackers not for good, but the bad ones, they typically have much bigger budgets than any of the corporates and the governments out there to hire the right people with the right skills. So that's where the challenge has really come in. I still have the faith, by the way, that people are really consciously making the choice also not to go that way. Just like any house can be broken into by someone, but I still have the faith that not everybody will break into other people's houses and that we still have good people with good values around, right? So in the cyber world, it's very similar, that dilemma. The only difference is with cyber, it tends to be a lot easier for people who do the bad thing to hide and to not be ever visible to anybody. Whereas someone breaking into your house would be probably more at risk of being, seen by other people with their own eyes. So that's, I think, the reason why we're getting so nervous about cyber, because we know that, these people can do it, and we might never actually detect where they even reside. So that's an example there. Then where Internet of Things, the IoT world gets affected by cyber attacks. So this is where we see any real large or small device these days hangs off the internet. I'm actually not that much in favor of that if it's really not necessary. I think sometimes we see organizations go the trends. Oh, we need to this cloud-based and keeping it offline in control rooms, SCADA, for example, to have actually supported locally and not connected can be otherwise. Yeah, so that's for safety reasons and for not being subject to you might sometimes have to choose. Sounds very old-fashioned, but for the crew, I think it's something. So, and that meets couldn't get product. We now know what has been put in that supply chain. Could be even bad chemicals, things like that. If you drive of a country, well, think about that being a target. We get really nervous about these kinds of situations. And companies that actually, like they, for example, they in cybersecurity, but still, foolproof, completely watertight, airtight. Water. All right. What of that cyber attack? $40 million paid to ransomware, and this is another thing. A lot of organizations sort of and governments are deciding, we should not allow people to pay.
Hello.
Not actually.
Sorry to interrupt you, Rinsky. Actually, your network seems unstable. It's the voice is distorted for everyone.
It's for
Yeah,
let me.
yes, the voice is not clear, like it's distorted somewhere.
Okay, let me try to check my network quickly.
Yeah.
This is my continuity plan. Just give me one second. Okay. Change one setting. Just give me a moment. Should be already. Okay. And I mentioned visions like.
No, I guess still it's distorted.
Okay, let me try again. Apologies,
Yeah,
by the way.
yes. No
This is
problem.
not a test. This is not a test about this community.
No
Let me
problem.
do this.
Yeah, even participants are facing this problem. So they are putting in the chat box.
Right, let's try that. Okay, how's my voice now? Is that a little bit better?
Yeah, it's better. It's better now.
Better? Okay, great. I have a backup for everything these days, an alternate workaround for many things. So hopefully these stories don't shock you too much, but the fact that all your innovation and your digital transformation and all these things have wonderful impacts on your productivity, perhaps on your innovation with your customers and so on, and your products. But think about the flip side, and that is that, yeah, the invisible kind of risk that is out there sometimes. So it has to be a good balancing act. And you can see here what happened with that issue. What I wanted to touch on here is we often hear governments and also corporates and government agencies actually declaring that they would not pay ransom. But when it really comes to the moment when they're being hacked, and their data are out there, or the hackers are threatening to put their data out there in the public domain, you sometimes see their choice changes. You know, the affected organization's choice changes, and they suddenly do decide to pay ransom. We also see a number of examples where there's class action against organizations who didn't pay ransom, and then customer data went out there in the public domain. There's at least 2 or 3 examples of this in the last year in the region where I live in Australia. And so, yeah, it's a very interesting field when you talk about cybersecurity cyber insurance, for example. With cyber insurance, there is actually most of the time there's clauses in there that allow you to pay ransom, and the insurer will actually cover that. And hackers tend to know these days what that cover is that you have, and they will ask for ransom just under that level. And so we're dealing with a number of challenges here. There's also a number of organizations that tell me that they're now pooling their funds and not actually getting insurance for cyber attacks. They're actually pooling their money together with other organizations in the same industry, or people that they liaise with, partnerships. And yeah, because it's becoming too expensive to have cyber insurance. So these are becoming quite strategic questions, and that's where we're heading now with that whole story. It's about trying to get buy-in and support from the senior leadership when they see the actual impacts on the bottom line, on the day-to-day costing of a business, and the opportunities that are coming with it. That's where you can possibly get some traction. So the cost of a breach over time, here's the development of that. And you can see here over the last, let's say, 36 to 48 months, you can see that that's gone dramatically up. Yeah, that's where we see the cost over time, not the immediate impact of a cyber attack, but actually, if then customers leave at the end of the year and they switch suppliers or something, you can see that the overtime costing needs to be calculated, and that's become a pretty dramatic development, as you can see here, and especially in highly regulated industries. So what I wanted to ask you guys all in the chat, can you please put in there what is the biggest cyber rock in your shoe? Now, what I mean with that is on your road, on your in your shoe, what is the biggest rock in terms of your cybersecurity preparedness? Or you can even answer it more broadly with information security as a reference point. So basically, what is the biggest challenge that you are dealing with in your role as a beginning cybersecurity specialist, or you might be a very experienced cyber risk consultant, or you might be in an organization dealing with risk management around cyber. Whatever your role is, can you please type in the chat right now what is your biggest challenge? Yeah, so please fire away. I can see here some answers coming through. Management support, People think that they will not be affected. Yeah, people think that, oh, it will happen to someone else, maybe someone else. I can see it coming through in the typing there. Yeah, yeah. Very interesting. User awareness issue, internal threat. Insider threat is also a very interesting field. And this is where boards and executives could really switch on, because insider threat is not just someone necessarily turning into a rotten apple. We always think, oh, if you work here for a period of time, you're part of the, I don't know, the company, the family, whatever you're going to call it. And how can someone suddenly do bad things to, the company, their colleagues, etc.? It doesn't typically evolve like that. Being coerced into bad behavior is a fundamentally different thing, and that's what we typically now see. I know quite a few experts in this field who I listen to a lot, and when someone does something bad to their own employer, in many, many cases, not in all, but in many, many cases, it's not just their own suddenly, turning themselves against the company. It's usually being influenced, recruited, we call that, by hackers, by criminals to do something bad. And if they don't, they might do something far worse, like threatening their family or have compromising information on the person, which is very easy to do when you do a little bit of research on someone online. And so typically these criminals, they find ways to make a very good employee who would never in their sane mind do something, turn them and make them do things that are completely illegal and that really compromise the information of the organization. So don't always think it's an intentional issue, and of course there's a variety of things in between. What we also find is background checking of staff. Sounds great, right? Like you're being reviewed, your ethical values, your financial issues, your family history. But often that's done once, and then you've got your access to everything, and suddenly 2, 3, 4 months later, you might find that actually you have a different situation. And are you actually reviewing staff at that frequency? And we typically find that that's not the case at all. So it's like really we think, oh, we hire someone, and if it's a good person, they will never do anything. And that's what I'm trying to say. It's a very versatile, it's a very changing field. And yeah, you need to, of course, keep on checking that then. And to what degree can you do that? Or do you have any other monitoring tools? So yeah, there's quite a lot of challenges I see coming through in the chat there. Information availability, support costs, human nature being, different every day, really. Awareness and adherence to protocols, and especially if you make those protocols too hard. Like, for example, password change policy. Sounds like a simple thing, right? Oh, we can just make that, you have to change your passwords every week, every month. And it has to be minimum 8 characters with exclamation marks and special characters and numerical values and whatever. And that's all great, for your technical control. But what do people do if it becomes too hard to remember those passwords because they have to change all the time and it has too many characters? They start circumvening that control. And how do they do that? Well, for example, by writing their password on a sticky note and sticking it under their keyboard. And you wonder what is a bigger risk, to have a less frequent password change policy and have people remember it, or now they're all sticking it in sticky notes and sharing it in that way, or making their password the same on all different platforms and systems. And so, yeah, it's a constant balancing act. Yeah, but thank you for sharing in the chat. That's great to read. And to see how there's a variety of issues going on there. Yeah. One of the most important ones here, and that also touches on the rest of my slides, is security is thought in isolation and not as an organizational level. So it's not embedded in typical day-to-day business. And so, yeah, so once again, it's important to have that also covered and somehow make a culture of people adopting this. And that's also not easy, right? You don't just change culture overnight, but having people think the what ifs can be a starting point, or having a tagline or something simple that they can think about during a period of maybe a whole year when that becomes a theme for the organization to get their staff more aware. and not overwhelming them with 137 different risks. And people don't remember that, of course. All right, this picture I really like. So if we're all running from the bear, how fast do you then need to be? You can put that in the chat if you like. It looks like a funny picture, right? But if we're all running like these, I think it's the BBC guys running from it. How fast do you need to be if we are all running from that bear? So you can put that in the chat.
Hi, Rinsky.
And so let me have a look at what some of you might be answering there.
Hello. Rinsky, hi.
Hi,
Yeah, your screen is stuck, I guess.
are you okay? Is everything okay?
Yeah, now it's available, but screen
Yeah.
is stuck, and even I guess your camera is stuck.
Okay.
And
Okay,
your
let me do
voice
this
is
again.
also distorted again. Yeah.
Okay, I've tried my second network. Australia is a place like really like cowboy land when it comes to connectivity. Can you guys hear me better now?
Yeah, the voice is better
Okay,
now. Yes.
let's and can you see the picture?
Yeah, we can see the picture as well.
Okay, so let me see how fast we have to be. Tell me about it. Faster than the bear, really? Wow, that's really hard, isn't it? Anyone have any other answers? Typically, what we think is, oh, maybe we just have to be faster than the slowest person. And then the bear stays busy with that one for a while. And also what people think these days is if they are not, I could see some of those answers coming through. So typically what we also see is people have the perception that if their industry is compromised, like, by a particular malware or something, if they do slightly better than the competitors, the illusion is, oh, well, that might be good enough because we'll still look better than the rest of the pack. Literally when we're running from that cyber bear. And the answer these days, it's not like that anymore. Customers are way too smart these days. They know that you should have good controls in place, good response plan, good preventative controls, good alternate suppliers of cybersecurity services, and so on. So it's basically not good enough anymore to be just faster than the slowest person. You really have to be faster than that bear. So I think one person answered that immediately correctly. So thank you once again. The It's not an IT thing anymore. I think that's important to realize these days. Well, these days as well, people still think it's the IT fixing the cyber issues. Really, what the ISO 27001 promotes is a whole of organization, end-to-end awareness, engagement. So from the work floor, from the senior leadership, and also the continual improvement. It's not just an IT thing anymore. We're now really looking at having this particular issue managed by an organization corporate-wide, like organization-wide. So what that means is, for example, HR might be involved in having training of staff tackled. Corporate comms might be involved in having, during a cyber attack, having the right information pushed out to staff, but also their customers and other stakeholders out there. There might be other areas like engineering or development or whatever that are also having the awareness about how this issue of cybersecurity affects their area specifically and what workarounds they might have that are, for example, offline, so that it doesn't actually matter if something happens, they can at least continue the core business. So you can see here also an example of how the governments around the world are starting to become less understanding if a board or particular company directors knew about a cyber risk and didn't actually articulate it, didn't disclose it, and didn't treat it. So these days, disclosure doesn't just mean, oh, we now have a cyber attack happening. Disclosure also means that to your stakeholders, you are now having to say, we are at risk. Or if not, explaining why not. And so it's not as easy anymore to just say, oh, we just basically, we wait for it to happen and then we disclose it in 24 hours. That's also important, of course. But next to that, you have to, for good corporate governance, you also have to now really make sure that you disclose things on the go and actually explain to your customers and stakeholders and regulators that you're protecting your business properly. And if you don't, what are the reasons? And what is your plan to do that soon enough, to protect your business better? And what's your investment plan around that? And how do you cover that? So, yeah, it's becoming really a whole of business issue and not just an IT thing. So what can you do using the ISO standards and the frameworks, but generally talking to people out there in your organization? Explain to them that a cyber incident response plan is not the same as a DR plan. Disaster recovery plans in the past used to assume one data center or server room would be unavailable, for example, because of flooding or fire or something. And then we would have an alternate data center, server room, set of systems to then cover for that. That was DR. Now, when we talk about cloud, that fundamentally has changed, right? But also when we talk about cyber risk, we now find there's potentially a risk that both environments are affected, your production as well as your disaster recovery environment. And that means that, well, we need still business continuity plans, manual workarounds, all sorts of alternate ways to do business. And yeah, that your DR strategy might be completely out the window because both environments, multiple environments are affected by the same malware. Also explain to business people that they are specifically a target as business people. And for example, CEO and CFO fraud, where whaling, as we call it, the big ticket items, the big fish in your organization are specifically targeted to actually, for example, be impersonated during an business email compromise, where people in the business are acting upon requests like making transfers. And these days, we're getting phone calls almost every day. If you're a supplier, a vendor, you get phone calls regularly now from clients who want to make a transfer to you as a supplier, but they need to manually validate that with phone calls and so on. So the CEOs and CFOs do need to have the awareness that they, as a person, can also be a target, because that becomes still a person clicking on the wrong thing. And that would be, yeah, a training and awareness issue. The cloud seemed something magical, right? Years ago, oh, we can now outsource our problem of security and disaster recovery. And because the cloud providers, they're much better prepared. We think that they have great data centers and fantastic information security and secure payment gateways and goodness knows what. But in my view, the cloud is just someone else's computer. Yeah, and let that sink in for a while. When you're managing your own systems, your own connectivity, your own security, at least you know when there's emerging risks, when there's suddenly, for example, not enough workforce, like key staff leaving, training, and awareness getting out of date. With your cloud vendors, you're not in their door all the time. You don't know what they're doing all the time, and they may have committed to wonderful protocols and procedures and practices in their contracts. But my experience is the cloud vendors, their salespeople are happy to sign any kind of contract with a potential customer. They actually sometimes put in additional clauses of how quickly they might respond in terms of an incident, in a real incident. But those salespeople at your cloud or other vendors are typically not the same people as your actual technical experts in these cloud vendor organizations or in your IT vendors generally. So their own salespeople and their own technology people are typically not talking. So the salespeople promise you something in terms of response times or support. And when a real incident happens, you have to really still see, is that actually being achieved? Are they actually delivering that? And do you know if there's other customers knocking on the same door? And are we getting priority in that situation? All right, the detection and assessment of a cyber threat is far more complex than assessing if a building is subject to fire or flood or something. Cyber, is sometimes it takes 18 months before realizing that data has been compromised. So it's very, very difficult to then do the assessment on the source of that particular hack, of that particular data breach. And what was the issue? Was it a lack of patching? Was it a insider threat situation? Was it any other things that we can think about? We don't know. And especially because there's such a time lag. So it's often complex, and we typically need external support to assess the problem. And that's again subject to sometimes a lot of waiting times, especially if those specialists are busy with helping others as well. In-house expertise often being insufficient. That links with that. And I've already mentioned this one. Yeah, the SLAs don't really cut it. Sometimes your service level agreements are sometimes going straight out the window in these situations. And you still have to answer your customers, of course, if they're concerned about that issue. And pointing the finger at the supplier is not really an option anymore. Insurers may actually encourage you to pay ransom, and that's where things get really strange. I mean, which insurer would tell you, give the burglar all your furniture and, you know, help them along? When we see insurers doing this, there's really an interesting development going on. Their premiums are getting higher and higher, though. So maybe there's a linkage there. I'm not pointing fingers, but it's a very strange situation. And the other thing is, it's absolutely reasonable as a business person, as a business manager, to demand technical experts to avoid bedazzling lingo. So if you're one of those technicians that actually uses an acronym every second word, it's your responsibility to translate those acronyms into normal business language. It's also reasonable for business people to expect you to translate their world into yours. Like, for example, what is important to a business person? Financial impact, physical security, you know, compliance, reputation, those things that they can understand if you're a technical cyber expert. So you need to learn to translate all of that, and that's a big job. So it's not in the knowledge you have, it's in the questions you ask. And that's also for the boards and executives to know. Maybe they don't understand any of these bedazzling concepts around cyber and the technical talk around it, but they need to learn to ask the right questions. And that's especially for the business managers out there. Common pitfalls in cybersecurity. It's all in people's heads, or there's extensive documents, but still gaps. A lot of people copying and pasting procedures and plans off the internet. Chat GPT, you know, like, oh, we just fix a few things and there we've got our plan. Yeah, that's not an option if you have a specific industry requirement, if your organization is a little bit different from the stock standard, your workforce is different, your education levels or awareness sessions have already taken place, for example, you can then maybe assume some different preparedness levels. So all that stuff that is coming off the shelf, it still needs a lot of modification and tweaking. You also might find that there's no ownership or rhythm to update, and especially those cybersecurity procedures. Not properly translating things into business benefits and required budgets seeming unlimited. It's like the executive or the board see another cyber guy coming in the door asking for more budget for more technical controls or some mysterious thing that the board doesn't understand anyway. That's a real syndrome that I see happening everywhere. Skills shortages, and that's needing with staff suitably assessment criteria and methods. This is really difficult area. And we see skill shortages in all industries to a high degree these days, but especially in cybersecurity, information security skills, that's even harder to find good people. I heard the other day that in my country, in Australia, where we have 23 million people, apparently there's 30,000 new cybersecurity experts required to be employed in our country in the next 2 to 3 years. Where do you find those, you know? And often we also find it's done without engagement of physical security and business managers. So cybersecurity people have usually a bit of an isolated position out there under IT or, you know, in a special area and or with, you know, sometimes with privacy or areas like that or risk management. But yeah, we typically don't find enough interaction with other disciplines like physical security management and other business areas. The over-focus on technical controls I mentioned already, and little commitment to test the cyber incident response plan with surprise challenges. For example, key people not being uncontacted, not being available. Multiple related impacts occurring at the same time. So there may be a physical attack as well as a cyber attack at the same time. And protesters and their hackers, they're often working together on physical as well as cyber attacks at the same time. So we typically don't test all of that and we don't simulate that. And lastly, multiple unrelated impacts occurring at the same time, like Murphy's Law and Smith's Law, we say it. So unrelated impacts can be, it's a bad day because, it's actually payday today. And now we've got this compromise of our data happening and it's related to our employee information. So that would be Murphy's Law. Smith's Law apparently said Murphy was an optimist. So it's kind of taking it to the next level of unpreparedness and maybe 3 incidents happening at the same time that have nothing to do with each other, but just accidentally happening on that day. And as a result, false sense of security and lack of actionable readiness. So that's our end of our list here. Now, cyber risk mitigation, therefore, it needs to cover people, process, and technology, not just technology. And especially when it comes to processes like steps and documents and checklists and testing those, it needs to be kind of quick reference guide related. And we often find people already making things like playbooks, and short lists and checklists. But then the people putting that to the test. And we see here, what teams do you need? What training and awareness? Red teaming as a whole initiative. That's where we use our internal staff, for example, to hack their own process, to crack their own process, where we see what's the most vulnerable time of the day or month or year, or the way that hackers could get into our systems. Typically, that knowledge you already have in your business. I spoke to someone the other day. They said, if someone wants to get through our recruitment platform with unverified documents or diplomas, and not proper certification as a person. The best day to do that is on Friday, because that's when we only have our junior HR and IT staff working on that particular process. And on the other days of the week, there's also the senior leadership the senior HR person who always checks everything, any new applicants. But if it's on a Friday, that's probably the easiest for someone to sneak through that process. And so the internal staff are utilized with red teaming to identify real vulnerabilities. Very interesting way to test. Now, technology, I mentioned, is typically the first thing we think about. But we're in this space of IoT, I mentioned, and also IT hardware generally. They also need protection. So that's where you can get some really nice initiatives happening with physical and cybersecurity people working together. When it's about IoT, when it's about IT hardware being protected in terms of the controls around it, cyber controls, the information security controls. So yeah, it's a nice world that you can start merging, because it's needed. We all need to work together with others that think the what ifs. These are some examples of requirements. The ISO 27001 is in there, but there's other ones that we typically need to deal with. PCI, the payment card industry, the AI CPA, the SOC 2 or SOC, maybe you know that particular framework as well. And you can see some other frameworks there. Right, so let's have a look now at the ISO 27001 and how that can help with all these things I've been sharing just now. Let me have a quick look in the chat if there's a couple of questions there. Yeah. I might just cover that now because we actually talked about these aspects in the previous slide. I can see here, risk assessment needs to be done department-wise or company as a whole. Risk assessment can be a hybrid kind of approach where you have some generic risks. You might have some HR risks, for example, with particular controls that affect the whole organization. Certain IT controls, certain security controls, workplace health and safety controls, they might all be generic for the whole organization or some departments or particular region where your business operates. But then there's also specific ones. So I like not giving in a silo approach all the different sites or departments their own risk assessment to do, because there'll be a lot of duplication and misinterpretation between different business units, I find. So I would probably recommend having what are the generic ones, having that really clear, and having then the specific ones as little pillars underneath, and making them done by all those different business units that have specific risks to them, but also different impact ratings and likelihood ratings. Hopefully that answers that question. We're talking about the ISMS. Do we need to address product security or just back office support security? In the ISMS, it's actually everything, especially the ISO 27001 talks about everything. There is a variation of the 27,001 called the 28,000, and that is our information security in the supply chain. So it's actually like in the ISO 27000 family, there are some sub-standards or frameworks or guidelines, and that particular one is also certifiable, as far as I remember, the information security in the supply chain. So how do you actually check on systems of your suppliers? I might have to double check that because there's not all the ISO standards are certifiable by organizations. Most you can certify as a person and do an exam in it, but I'm talking about company certification here. And then the last question here that I'm seeing is, can penetration testing be done by in-house department, or does it have to be done through an external third party? Typically, I see external third parties being hired for this because the emerging risks, the constant change, it tends to become relatively stale and also difficult for in-house staff to always be at the forefront of what's happening in the industry when it comes to cyber risk. So if you have the opportunity, it's probably at least regularly also get external support with it. Yeah, because it's such a changing field. Okay, so here you can see the ISO 27001 2022 main clauses. This is the 2 years ago version that came out of the standard. And you can see the general clauses, and let's have a look at which ones are related to people, to processes, to what actually might help you get engagement and awareness of staff. And we mentioned buy-in and support of executives as well. So I would probably say all of these have a direct link with people, with organizational departments, with communicating the benefits across the board. All of these have relevance to that. Especially down there at the bottom, you can see awareness, competency, resources. That's all linked to that. And also 5.1, leadership and commitment. So all of these clauses have a link with our how to get buy-in from the organization. Then the next list, I would say all of them as well. So that is where we see controls like internal audits, management reviews. That's all linked to your senior leadership. And you can see all of these other ones have some sort of linkage as well. Then the actual annex. Now, the annex to the ISO 27001 is the actual controls. They are now grouped in 4 segments. This is different from the previous version of this standard, which was in 2013. That was a different list, but now we have 4 groupings. The first one being organizational controls. Once again, they're all linked to how your staff, your management, people who work with these frameworks, the processes and procedures, how they're all linked to that. So here you can see also the difference with the previous version of that standard. Again, another list, and this one is continuing from the organizational controls. You can see a number of them, like information security in the supply chain, and all those concepts we talked about, business continuity. All of these have a linkage with your strategic and tactical levels of the organization and how to sell the message out to them. Then the people controls. Well, that's clearly also a list that is relevant to all people, including senior leadership, but also, the general workforce, like things like teleworking, or we call it remote work now. Disciplinary processes, they of course have a direct linkage there. And physical controls. I would say all of these, any staff, any manager, any senior leadership team member who set foot into your premises with their devices, who use their devices in different places, storage media and so on, there's again a opportunity to, even with these physical controls, to use that as a selling point for ISMS to your senior leadership and your general workforce. So where you find opportunities here, it's actual stories especially. So if I'm trying to sell the concept of information security to the broader workforce, I'm trying to find real examples and case studies of where any of these have gone wrong. For example, was there an actual breach because there was no clear desk and clear screen policy applied to an organization? Working in secure areas, do people actually activate the right controls? We can find actual case studies around that. All right. Then the last list, and you could see here a question there from, I think, The last question on the list here in our Q&A provides some list of controls that could be considered apart from these 93. We actually use this as a framework. The clauses and the controls, which we still haven't finished, by the way, we're still not there. These are the technological ones. And with this list together, I think you're probably looking at a pretty good scope of controls that you need to think about. So you can see here all these technical controls, and some of them are actually related also to what you can use to sell it to the broader workforce. These are some things that people can digest: data leakage prevention, things like access rights. Of course, that links very much to their own behaviors as a staff member. And the question in the chat is there how to transition from 2013 to 22. You can see here how in my organization, my consultancy firm, we have put a column there to show what is the corresponding clause or control from the old version now in the new one. Yeah, so the references compared to the old version. So hopefully that gives you an idea there. You can do this yourself as well, but it's a lot of work to cross-check them. But what you can do is put the 2013 and the 22 and only look at where there's real new items, new concepts, real discrepancies between the two. Because most clauses were in the 2013, slightly different wording, but yeah, it's typically not that much new. There's a few things around investigations. There's a few things around cloud security that are new. The question about capacity management in the chat there. Capacity management talks more about the capacity of your IT environment. So your server capacity, for example, your VPN licensing capacity, how many of your users or how many of your applications can use a particular piece of hardware or an application in case of number of users. So it talks about managing that capacity, because that can create, if it's getting very close to if the usage is very close to the capacity of a server, for example, or a network link, you can then get unavailability issues. Like I mentioned, the CIA, the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So that's where you can talk about the availability issue. All right, I will continue a little bit more here. You can see some other examples. We might just see some of the chat questions at the end in the Q&A. That will be very soon, in about 2 to 3 minutes. I'll wrap up. So these are the later sort of controls here on that list of technical controls. Privileged utility programs, I think that usually resonates with the workforce as well. They can understand that it's their choice or their approval that needs to be done for that. And sometimes that doesn't happen for the right reasons, because it can be, of course, risky. And outsourced developments, that's where we have relationships with external vendors. So what's the role of business managers and executives? In my view, it is really about smart definition of risk appetite. That's one of the key things that business managers and executives need to do. And it's very blurry often. The risk appetite statements I see out there, they're utopian, they're vague, they're not translatable to general workforce. So that's a key role of business managers in this field. The managers should also demand to-the-point progress updates during an actual incident. So that's where we see some coherence between the technology people, security people, and the leadership. For example, if a real incident is evolving, what you don't want is that your technical staff and your information security staff are running into the boardroom or sitting there, and constantly give updates or get up technical kind of updates to people. But what we typically find works better is every 20 to 30 minutes have new facts, new impacts, and new recommendations coming out of those technical people to the broader executive, the leadership team, because that's when they can keep on making decisions in between. But what we often find is technical staff, as soon as they get into that boardroom, into that crisis management team meeting room, the leaders are starting to ask detailed questions about something that they don't really know anything about, and they will never understand so quickly anyway. But we often find it a constant flow of more information and more details and more impact and technical talk and more jargon. And actually, what in that incident should happen is that management team should be focused on making the right decisions. So have clear gaps, time lapses, in the sense of not being constantly overwhelmed with new detail. So we really would like to see more like every 20 to 30 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, whatever works, but it needs to be that there's a time in between where they can have conversations and think about the broader business impacts. So again, facts, impacts, and recommendations. Silver lining of an incident, very important to realize if things go wrong, of course, there's always a benefit there. And you can see here an organization that had ransomware, and they, instead of giving in, they built everything. So they actually didn't pay ransom; they just rebuilt, and they said it was a great exercise, and now they're far better prepared to be withstanding those impacts. And you can see here similar sort of things where in a real attack there was flaws, and now they're doing regular exercising. So sometimes you need that awareness. Other business benefits of cybersecurity incidents, and even if an attack never happens, you can see some benefits, especially cheaper cyber insurance. That may be one of your key things there. The biggest benefit, if you ask me, and this is another final question for the chat. The biggest benefit, let's talk about when you think about the analogy of driving a car. Why does your car have brakes? Very simple question. Please put your answer in the chat. Why does your car have brakes? Why is that important? When you're driving a car, why does it need brakes? Please fire away. Put something in the chat there. To stop. Really? Control. Prevent. Slow down. Be in control of the risks. To manage, to control. You know, nothing is really wrong with it, with any of your answers. Safety, you know, I can see here. Rethinking your action. All of this is true. But if I walk into an executive leadership team meeting and I say, I am here to help control the bad stuff, there I've already lost them, basically. Yeah, so my answer when it's about why does the car have brakes, which I ask also of these leaders, I ask them the same question. My answer of why does the car have brakes is so you can drive faster. Now have a think about that. How slow would you have to drive if you didn't have brakes? And that's the answer I give to executives who think that security and risk people, they're here to block the progress and they don't allow for innovation. They're basically just a pain in the backside. My language around it is not to avoid incidents and accidents and slow down. My language is around I'm helping you achieve your corporate objectives. And that's a far better question to start the conversation with. First, ask your leadership, ask them, what is one of your strategic objectives? And let them write that on a sticky note, and then ask them 3 bullet points that could derail that objective, that could get that off track. So those bullet points, they are really your risks, right? And what you're doing here as a security or risk person is helping reduce or eliminate those bullet points that could derail their objectives. And so if you start with that conversation, with the strategic objectives as a starting point, that's when you can possibly get some more traction. So start with that, because that's what they like to talk about, not so much risks. They don't like to talk about that. All right, let's continue on. So how to talk security at board and security in C-suite level. These are the 3 concepts I would really milk, the things that I would really emphasize. What is the rock on their road? Don't think about just the rock on your road as a security person. You want more budget, you want to get more traction, but what is the rock on their road? Financial impact and related probabilities, for example, in percentages, reputational impact, governance and compliance. That's the concept. That's the real thing that bother the board and the C-suite. And these are some of the ways that you can then sell that in their terminology to them. For example, if you say, we've got this really bad security risk, oh, it's huge impact, huge likelihood. What does that mean? Well, maybe you want to translate it differently and say, it's got this percentage of likelihood or some range, maybe 5 to 10%, you know, you don't have to be that specific, but give it some sort of uh, numerical value. And in that case, what does it cost us? Oh, it could cost us, on average, would probably cost us $100 million or something, or, you know, uh, 20 pesos or whatever. It might be thing that the C-suite wants to hear about is reputation. And what does it mean? Based on a recent case, ours will incur a loss of 20% market on financial governance and compliance. Be held liable personally for that if they were aware of it. Plus, we will lose our license to operate. That's the kind of wording that you need to use for them to really realize what they're dealing with and how they can then see the importance of what's being proposed to them. The broader workforce, and then I think I will need to, we started a little bit later, but I'll finish up then for some questions. And there's also a game happening, I hear. The broader workforce, just as important because that's where risk resides. And especially also for practical treatment and options and controls. Then a few ideas on that. The what's in it for me. Make sure you tackle that for the broader workforce and keeping it simple with a tagline or the top 3 risks or something simple that they can retain for the coming period. And of course, hot topics in the news, case studies, and give them some rewards as well. Competitions, you know, the fun factor. These things can all be used for engaging the broader workforce. All right, these last slides summarize all the things I've mentioned. That's the end of my talk. This is really about all the wrapping up of knowing that you can use a picture instead of 1,000 words. You know, looking at the security champions at top management level, engaging them first, thinking about facts and impacts and recommendations. Yeah, and looking at what are then when with those recommendations, not during an incident, but in day-to-day business, what are then the costs and the value adds of implementing controls? And lastly, this slide here for you to position yourself as a business enabler, yeah, and translating concepts around security as a bridge basically to the business world. If you don't have a CISO, people always complain to me, they go, oh, we don't have a chief security officer, the board and the executive don't find it important enough, that we're all doing this at the lower levels, we don't have the visibility at the C level. Well, at least start building a united front, you know, with business continuity, risk officers, physical security, and all these, the what-if people, the doomsday people, I call them. Have the convergence approach at least. Think about a think tank type approach together with them and do that, even if you can't get that visibility at the board. In this way, you can get some further visibility, maybe by some people in these areas that I've listed here that are at C level. Okay, I invite you all to think about your next step. What can you do in your organization or in your own home environment? How do you protect your business better? How do you protect your devices better? And yeah, I'd like to, of course, hear if there's any further questions. I'll hand back to Angie for wrapping up and also to do this gamification I hear about. I'm very excited about that.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Rinsky, to putting light on this session. It was a very knowledgeable session for us. So yes, we have some remaining questions, but however, due to the time constraint, we have to move ahead. So we'll try to answer the remaining questions on our socials. So everyone stay connected.
Yeah.
Yeah. So before we move forward to the gamification session, Rinsky, would you like to add any last statement to this like presentation?
Well, security starts with yourself. That's probably the main thing. And that's what all staff members need to know. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, so stay connected with us, everyone. We'll start with a gamification session soon. Just give me 1 second. Yes, so I would like to welcome my colleague, Ms. Setulu. She'll be taking forward with this session.
Yes, thank you, Anjali. And thank you so much, Rinsky. That session was really great, so fun, and the applications he provided was so helpful as well. So yeah, we'll start with the gamification without further ado here. I have shared the link where you can log in for the platform, and also session ID is 1799. Allow me to quickly explain how we will go about this. So you can click on the link that I have shared, and you can log in. If you have already played this, you know how it goes. So you can log in with your account. If you already have your credentials, you can do that. If not, then you can just go to sign up and enter your credentials. If your email is not working in case, then you can enter any dummy email, and then you can enter the session ID that is 1799. So once you do that, you will be logged into your dashboard. This will be the dashboard that you see. If you have logged in with your previous credentials, then you can click on your profile on the top right there, and then you can click on change session and enter the session ID that is 1799. So I'll just explain it again. This will be the dashboard that you see, the platform. Once you click on the link, and you can go on and log in or sign up. If you sign up, this will be the details that you have to add. If your email is not working, just enter any dummy email and enter the correct session ID that is 1799. If you have logged in with your current credentials, then just click on your name on the top right on your profile, and then click on change session and enter your session ID that is 1799. I hope everyone is able to get that. Okay, Rinsky, do take rest. I know you're in midnight, so thank you so much for the sacrifice with us, and hopefully we can get in touch with you again. Have a great night. Bye-bye. All right. Again, I hope everyone is able to log in here. If anyone is facing any problem, please let me know. And anyone watching live, you can log in with the link shared on the comments. It will be there. Now let me, this would be the game that you see. We will be playing stack of coins for today. So stack of coins, you already know what that means by the name. There will be a stack of coins with which you will get certain points. And this will be the game that you see. You have to click on tech challenge, and you will be entering the lobby of the game once you click on tech challenge. Also, just to quickly let you know, this game platform is provided by our partner Novel Vista. So thank you so much to the Novel Vista team for guiding us with this. Yes, you can enter any username for this. If you are facing any problem with the email, then you can just sign up and use a dummy email, but enter the correct session ID that is 1799. We will be publishing the recording of this session on our YouTube channel. We will share the links shortly. So I hope everyone has got it. Let me just quickly go through it again. This will be the login and sign up. If you have logged in, you can go to the session ID here, change session and enter your ID. If you are signing up, you can enter any dummy email. If it's not working for you, just enter a dummy email and then session ID. And this will be the game that you see where you have to click on Tech Challenge to enter the lobby. So I'm just sharing my admin screen here. Please give me 1 second. If you are facing any issue, then feel free to let us know in the chat box. So I'm just sharing my admin page here, where you can see everyone that has entered the lobby. If you are still trying to join in, please join in soon. We'll wait another 2 minutes for you all to join. If you don't see any game session, then kindly click on your profile name on the top right corner and change session ID. So once you change session ID, you will be getting an option to enter the session ID that is 1799. And from there, you have to click on live games. And under live games, you will see this game, Take Challenge. So you have the 3 tabs here on top, live games. You have to click on live games and you will see this game here. We'll wait just few more seconds here to start this. I have some players here. And just to let you know, we have a timer for this game. Let me give it 2 minutes. 2 minutes for this game, and then you will have to answer all the questions. How it will be going is according to the questions that you answer, you will be getting the points. If you answer it right on the first try, then you get the full points. The second try, the half points, and then the third points you get. Then you get the 25% point. If you fail on the third try, then you do not get any points there. There will be 10 questions in total. Only one answer per question, yes. And we'll give you 2 minutes. So I'm just starting the quiz now in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So I have started the timer as well and have started the quiz. Please refer to your screens to get the questions and the answer. Do not refresh your screen, because if you refresh it, then the whole page will be refreshed. You will be moved over to the home screen again, and you will lose your process here. So we have 2 minutes. We have given 2 minutes for this. Do utilize that properly. The top winner, that is the one who gets, who is number one, the winner will be getting a $400 word voucher from GSDC. And for the 3 winners who are on top, they will be listed. They will be published on our GSDC Wall of Fame, where you get global recognition from us. All right, I see the competition is going fast. In case we have winners with the same points, your time will be counted as per how much time you took to complete the game, and according to that, you will be the winner. All right, we have 40 seconds more. If I believe there is 10 questions, so if you are still lagging behind, then you better hurry up. There's 30 seconds left. Also, after the quiz, we would love it if the winners could come up on screen and share their takeaways. So I will ask any one of the players, any one of the winners to share their takeaways. Please do share with us. We have a tough competition going on here. We have 10 seconds. I'll just count the timer and you have to complete it. So in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So that's the end of the quiz. I'm ending it here. You can refer to my screen for the winners, or you can refer to yours as well. We can see here Samuel is the winner of this quiz. Thank you so much for playing with us. We also have Adikoya and Nataraj at 9:50 each. However, Adikoya did faster at 1:39, so he has got the second place. So congratulations to the winner. Can I request any one of you to please unmute yourself, or maybe show your video as well and share your takeaways here? Samuel, I believe it's Samuel Raji, right? Okay. Yes, we had provided 2 minutes. All right. Hi, Samuel.
Hi, good day.
Hi. How was your takeaway with this game?
So I'm actually a bit new to ISO. So most of the questions I saw there actually wasn't certain what the responses were. But that may have been that I'm just underestimating myself. And most definitely, I picked some things from the session we concluded just now, which helped me as well.
Yes. Thank you so much for playing well. Even though you say you are quite new, you have won the quiz and you did a great job at it. So we'll connect with you once, maybe by tomorrow, we will connect with you within this week and we'll talk about the voucher that you have won. So anyway, congratulations to you and to the other 2 participants. I will hand over the time to my colleague again. to close this session. So thank you so much again for participating. Anjali, you can take over.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Setulu. It was a fun gamification activity. So we have our next session like tomorrow, that is 14th of May. So Mr. Christophe Mazzola, DSCVR Managing Director, he will be presenting us about this topic tomorrow. So stay connected with us on our all socials. Also follow us on our LinkedIn and join our community LinkedIn group. And also, please do visit our website, GSDC Council, for more details. Kindly share your session takeaway and learning outcomes on Trustpilot. Thank you very much, everyone. Stay connected with us for this upcoming sessions on our social. Thank you.